Commercial free. We just can't hear them. Who said that?
Sir?
People walking by, they're all
Free hugs. No, I didn't see
bunch of
Jehovah's Witnesses. There's nothing like it. I was listening. I was shooting ball up.
time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
And good evening. Welcome into a Talking Tuesday edition of Sports Talk from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth and Will Pelagic. Professor Tom Hayes is off this week. Brian Leonard once again behind the bulletproof, missile-proof glass here at our beautiful Learfield Studios on Main Street. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. And hope you've had a great day. Looking forward to spending the next 2 hours with you, the best 2 hours of your day as you are headed home. Stuck in traffic, perhaps. Relax, listen to us. Maybe you're out for a walk or a jog or getting in a quick 9 or just doing something this afternoon before the rain comes tomorrow night and Thursday. It is a Talking Tuesday, and they were talking at South Carolina today. Not one, but two quarterbacks. So we tip our cap to Steve Fink and USC for providing both quarterbacks to the media. Of course, Will Muschamp talked as well. And no talking at Clemson today, but we do have some interviews from the Tigers from earlier in the week that we will get to as the Tigers have the week off. So the news out of South Carolina, first and foremost, it will be Jake Bentley if healthy, and he's expected to be healthy, starting at quarterback Saturday against Texas A&M. Personally, think it's the right call. I know Scarnecchia did a wonderful job on Saturday to guide the Gamecocks to a come-from-behind win against Missouri. But you just don't throw Jake Bentley out because of that. I think his career marks and his experience and his talent. I mean, he's still, I think, a talented quarterback. Maybe, you stand on the sideline for a game, whether it's because of injury or because of performance, you watch the other guy, you learn a thing or two, and we'll see if it carries over to this Saturday.
Well, Bentley said that it was a grade 1 MCL sprain, which is kind of what I thought it was basically portrayed as. The way they'd been talking about it made it sound like there was a sprained ligament. Grade 1 is the least severe. I think they go in I think there's 3 grades, and grade 1 is the least severe. Normally that takes about a couple of days to any more when maybe like a week and a half to heal itself and get itself ready. He's still going to have to wear the brace, which I think should encumber him, which I don't necessarily like about that particular fact. But I do agree with you in the fact that a healthy Jake Bentley is the best opportunity for South Carolina to win. Now, I don't know if he's going to be, quote unquote, healthy enough to play on Saturday and to play as effectively as he might be at peak health. I still think that there's probably going to be some lingering, pain. And I don't want to sit here and say that he's deceitful or trying to deceive the doctors at South Carolina. But I do say that he wants to do everything he possibly can to not get Wally pipped. He wants to make sure that he keeps his job intact. And I hope that he's doing all the right things and saying all the right things and being honest with the doctors and the folks in the training staff at South Carolina to ensure that they're putting their best foot forward. I agree with you. The best foot forward for South Carolina when he's healthy is Jake Bentley. But you at least know now that you can hand the offense to a competent person in Michael Scarnecchia if either injury or inability to perform ends up happening with Bentley on Saturday or in the future.
This is really a good situation for South Carolina. I mean, you don't want Bentley hurt. You want him playing at 100%. But now you do have a capable backup that you can turn to. It's a luxury that maybe they've had all along and just didn't know it because you never played Scarnecchia in a meaningful moment. And so when the bright lights were on him last Saturday, he stepped up big time. And not only did he step up big time with the bright lights on him, he stepped up big time in a monsoon, lightning all around him, just the craziest conditions, and he kept his head about him, and he really played, in terms of the passing game, he really played his best football in the second half when the conditions were the worst.
And the weirdest thing about this from Bentley's perspective, because I know we've had a lot of people react, and we have our poll question up at our website, SportsTalkSC.com, and also on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC. If you want to, you can still take advantage of that and vote in that poll. We still have the majority of the people who want to see Michael Scarnecchia as the quarterback. And the reason why is the last image of Jake Bentley was that Kentucky game where he went just 13-28, had a raw QBR of 37 and a completion percentage of 46. If you take out the Coastal Carolina game, it really hasn't looked good for him. And, the Vandy game was good, but I almost wonder, what Vandy is.
Yeah, but go back to Kentucky. If Brian Edwards catches those two balls, if Debo catches that ball that he dropped, especially the two balls to Brian Edwards, one of which was probably, nothing is sure, but I would say probably a sure touchdown. The other one would have been a big gain.
Right.
Those numbers look a little different, and maybe the outcome is a little different. You can't, Jake put those balls on the money. He can't catch it for him. All right, they still have to catch it. Listen,
the interception number is one you can't defend.
True, but I'll say this. I mean, I think what upsets Gamecock fans who've been following his career is his inconsistency. Sometimes he throws a beautiful ball and he puts around the money. Sometimes he's got an open receiver in the flat and he throws it too hard. He's got to learn the touch pass, I think, a little bit better. That's something I don't think he's mastered at this point. Just putting enough air under it or the right touch so his receivers can catch it. But he has had, go back to the Georgia game, the number of drops that they had in that game. His receivers have not bailed him out, and maybe he hasn't bailed them out sometimes too. It kind of goes both ways. I still say a healthy Jake Bentley, like you said, gives them the best shot at knocking off Texas A&M at home, but it's a nice security card to have in your back pocket. And, we asked Will Muschamp today if Jake, not from a health standpoint, if he just goes out there and can't move the offense and he falters offensively, will you now go quicker to Scarnecchia? Would you make a move to jumpstart your offense? And his response was, well, typical Muschamp, we'll do what we have to do to win.
Which is yes.
I think so.
That's yes. And I think, again, I asked this to Michael Scarnecchia. I asked this to other players. Does it help having seen it in a game? And, of course, they all said the right things about saying, we always had confidence in him going in. But I think they all very much admit, Scarnecchia included, that it's much better to at least see the results, have something to go off of, have a positive result to go off of. And I still think, and you can agree with me or if you whether or not you do or not, I still think he could have done more in that game if he was given the opportunity to do so. He did attempt 35 passes, completing 20 of them. I still think there could have been more passes, and they could have been less predictable on first and second down and maybe put more on his shoulders, though they did at least hide behind the cover of the fact that, the weather at least forced them to run the football a little bit more. All
right, our phone number is 800-956-7266. Our email, talkback@sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, at SportsTalkSC. Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic here on a Talking Tuesday. We will hear from Will Muschamp throughout the show talking about the quarterback situation. Not going to call it a controversy, but situation. Now, discipline issues. He talked about that today and the fact that his team now is last year they were one of the least penalized teams in the country. This year they're one of the most penalized teams in the country. And they are still, he still has players who are barking at the opponents and drawing needless personal foul penalties.
It's not just the penalties. It's the kind of penalties. It's the 15-yard unsportsmanlikes. It's the targetings. It's the self-inflicted things that are basically indefensible, if you will. Like, you could probably defend things like pass interference, a holding here or there, or maybe even one jump off sides, but you cost your team 15 yards for something that is completely controllable. That's something that he has really he has no tolerance for.
Yet, I mean, we don't see it in a game. Maybe he's penalizing these guys in practice with extra laps, extra up downs. I mean, he's not pulling guys. Have you noticed him pull a guy out of a game who draws a personal foul?
He said this, I forget if it was after the Kentucky game or after one of the teleconferences. He said they don't have good enough depth to be able to discipline guys by use of the bench. They just don't.
Well, then the player knows knows he can get away with it, even though he's hurting his team.
That's a big problem.
That is a problem. So we'll hear from him on that. We're going to hear from the quarterbacks as well.
Yes, we have Michael Scarnecchia's sound and also Jake Bentley's sound. And in the mode of the quarterback, we have the quarterback from Clemson, Trevor Lawrence. His comments on the open week availability from yesterday up at Clemson. They had their service day today. Dabo Swinney and the folks up there. Sean Pollard received his award as well for the community service he did before the season to raise money for cancer awareness. And so that's obviously something on the minds up there. But they're basically going to work the next 4 days, or the next 3 days, I guess you could say, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then take off Friday through Sunday before they prepare for NC State.
And Kerry Tharp will join us, of course, on a Tuesday night to talk about the race at Dover over the weekend and what's happening on the NASCAR scene as we move forward with the playoffs. 800-956-7266. You can grab a piece of us right after the break. Give us a call.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We continue on a Talking Tuesday. We want to hear from you doing some of the talking as well. 800-956-7266 on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. Some folks have already made some comments on our Twitter that we'll get to here. Flowbird says you can't replace accuracy with inaccuracy when it comes to Jake Bentley. Chris Anderson says the Bentley experience had just 9 passing yards in the first half against Kentucky. He said, at my job, there are
drops
30-plus years of experience and have a wealth of experience, and others 5 years who are basically the ones who are there 5 can join the job better. Experience is only beneficial when it's productive. This guy who calls himself Strong Gamecock, what freaking games has he been watching? Come on, coach. Loyalty and unwillingness to adjust is what got you fired at Florida. So there's that.
You know, people, be careful what you wish for.
I don't know if they want that.
And, you know, Scarnecchia did an excellent job filling in this past Saturday. Is he ready to step up and be? This is not the same thing that Clemson was facing, where you clearly had a superior quarterback waiting in the wings that you just could not hold back in Trevor Lawrence. It's not the same situation.
Bentley's the more talented quarterback when they're both playing at peak performance. The problem is we haven't seen Bentley at peak performance in a couple of weeks.
800-956-7266. You go back to last year's game against Texas A&M, which A&M won out there 24-17. Bentley threw for 256 yards, was not intercepted, had 2 touchdowns. He was sacked how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How about 7 times?
Yeah,
so you got to give him protection. Brian Edwards had 4 catches in that game for 68 yards. Shi Smith had 3. Of course, Hayden Hurst had 6.
I want to say they had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter in that game and blew it? Question mark?
Let me check.
I know they had a lead and they blew it.
Yeah, I think this was one that they had a chance to win. A&M scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. So it was 17-10. It was 10-7 at halftime, and then it was 17-7. Yeah, in the third quarter, 17-7. Then it was 17-10. Then they tied it at 17 early in the fourth, and then Keith Ford, a 17-yard run at 7:42, won it for A&M.
Knew that mind was a good thing.
And you go back and you look at the fourth quarter. I mean, I've got to go back here and look at the play-by-play. I don't recall off the top of my head. The Gamecocks, let's see, their next possession, after they fell behind, they went 3 and out.
Yep.
Then they had a bit of a drive for A&M that resulted in a Trapuka punt. The Gamecocks took over their own 20, and they turned it over. No, and they actually got to their own 48, and they turned it over on downs at their own 48, and that was with 30 seconds to go, and that was the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I remember from that contest, though, that contest and the Kentucky contest from a year ago were the two that really, if you were a Gamecock fan and you wanted, you know, the year to go from being a great year to being a landmark year, those are the 2 games you look at and you say you really had to have. The fact that they have not beaten Texas A&M since the Aggies have come to the conference is a bit of a troubling thing. I don't think it's because the Aggies are necessarily that much better than South Carolina. They have had a lot of different circumstantial things that have happened in those games. The one thing, though, that is glaring about Kellen Mond is the fact that they struggle with mobile quarterbacks because of their lack of gap integrity. And I think that's something that could play itself out. Played itself out last year against Kentucky, played itself this year against Kentucky, could play itself out again this year. And the one thing that talking to Gamecock players, I guess it doesn't show up on film, but it showed up when we saw Clemson play Texas A&M. Mond's a better passer this year than he was last year.
No doubt.
And they're asking him to do more in the passing game. But the other part of this is Jimbo Fisher now knows how to better utilize that run game than the previous administration, Kevin Sumlin.
All right, 800-956-7266, the phone number. Let's talk about what this game means for South Carolina after beating Missouri. And, you know, we talked last week about how big the Missouri game was to save South Carolina's season. So they basically have gotten a reprieve by pulling that game out miraculously, as it turned out. I mean, think about it. They They fell behind on a, what was it, 57-yard field goal?
Yes.
So you fall behind. You got a backup quarterback, a sloppy field, just unbelievable conditions that you're playing in.
All kinds of circumstances involving adversity.
And your quarterback makes a huge play. Your tight end, seldom used, few catches in his career, makes a great catch and run to set you up. And then your place kicker, who is having a great year, drilled it. So you pulled it out, and you get a reprieve. Your season really, to have not a great season, but a highly respectable season is still alive. This now, Texas A&M in Columbia gives you the chance, if you can pull it off, to go and have an almost great season, because you look at it right now, the Gamecocks are sitting at 3-2 overall, 2-2 in the SEC. The schedule sets up like this. If you can beat Texas A&M, okay, that makes you 4-2 and 3-2. You got 2 weeks to get ready for Tennessee. You won't need them. You should beat Tennessee without that.
Yes.
You're 5-2 and 4-2 in the SEC. You're guaranteed of a non-losing season in the league, and you're 5-2 overall. Then you got to go to Ole Miss and win a high-scoring game, probably.
Yes.
You're going to have to score points. Then Florida now looks, let's just say you lose. If you can beat Ole Miss and you lose to Florida, that makes you 6-3 with 3 games left.
2 technically, with the third would being
they're going to add somebody, yeah. So you beat Chattanooga
7-3.
Lose to Clemson 7-4, and then schedule who can you schedule that you can beat?
Hampton.
Schedule somebody you can beat.
Georgia Southern.
I don't mess with Georgia Southern.
Sorry.
And get yourself an eighth win. To me, that's about a game behind. I thought they'd win 9 or 10 in the regular season. That's a game behind where I think the most optimistic people would have them. Then you go win your bowl game again. You get 9 wins out of the season, which I think is a little bit disappointing. Maybe I had the Gamecocks doing too much this year. Maybe in my mind they were oversold and under-excelled.
Well, the one reason it is oversold, or not even oversold, the one reason they're not performing up to the expectations that we probably expected was that we expected the defense to look like it did last year. It is not, under any circumstances. They have not been able to stop the run, and they've had breakdowns in pass coverage.
Turnovers, not creating turnovers.
Before this last game, they have not turned the ball over at the rate they did it last year. They're still pretty good on third down, but also, again, we talked earlier about the penalties. They've been making a lot of those happen on defense. A win over A&M erases the Kentucky loss, in my opinion. Erases the Kentucky loss in your mind. That basically makes those 2 games a wash. If you beat Florida, that takes away the Georgia call.
Yep.
So in that mind, it makes you back even if you can get the Florida win.
All right, let's hit the phones real quick before the break, and we're going to hear from Muschamp coming up. Casey in Mount Pleasant, good to have you with us tonight. How are you on Sports Talk?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Yep.
I was just thinking about that Scarnecchia thing, and don't you think also they didn't have any film on this guy, and so they haven't been able to break down anything, his tendencies or anything that he really does on the field. You think that had something to do with his success?
I think so. I think the element of surprise certainly worked in South Carolina's favor. They didn't know him very much. There's really no sophisticated video of him from college football. I mean, he only played in mop-up time, so you're just seeing him against backups and basic defenses. So now Texas A&M, they've got the video on him from this past week. They'll have a better idea of what to expect from him. So that's an excellent point.
I'm not sure if that's as much of a factor because South Carolina didn't drastically change their offense. They maybe ran it more, but I don't think it necessarily drastically changed from what they do under Bentley. I only think that's the case if you're putting a different kind of quarterback out there. Like if the Carry-On Joyner, for example, started.
Yeah, but
that's much different.
I don't think it's about changing your offense. I think it's about, like he said, the tendencies of the quarterback. What does he like to do? What happens when he feels pressure coming off his weak side? Where does he go with the football? One thing I noticed about, and this is a positive tendency that I noticed just this one game, he stands in the pocket to the very end.
He certainly does.
Keeps the football to the last moment and delivers the football.
I don't believe he got hit.
No, I remember a couple of times he got hit after delivering. I mean, they were good hits, but he completed some of those passes.
Right, but I don't think he got sacked, though.
No, I don't know about that. I've checked the stats, but I'm just saying I was impressed by his courage in the pocket. He does not have happy feet for a guy who doesn't play very much. He really settled in and controlled himself. All right, break is coming up. We're going to hear from Muschamp and more of your calls here on Sports Talk.
Not that I like to bring up history, but because I do. I found it very interesting to see that Will Muschamp basically agreed with the way the Demarie Crockett touchdown reversal was adjudicated by the SEC officials, basically saying he thought
Well,
that.
what the hell do you think he's going to say at his own news conference?
I don't know.
Yeah, Will, I agree. You're right.
We got away with one.
Referees got it wrong. That was a touchdown. Boy, I'm sure glad they ruled in our favor, Will.
According to.
Who do you think that was making that call? Angel Hernandez?
Well, I mean, he was about as blind as a bat. Yes, last night.
Holy cow! You know he's behind the plate tonight.
Do you think there'd be some phantom balls and strikes tonight?
Well, I know that the Yankee first baseman.
Yeah.
said something in the papers up there after the game about Hernandez. And I was listening to New York radio this afternoon, and the talk was, this guy, you know, you got to be careful because he's vengeful.
Yes.
You know, don't take anything close if you're Voigt.
On the Crockett thing, apparently Missouri did submit a couple of plays to the league, and I even heard that you know, there was some talk about, you know, the Gamecocks doing some nefarious stuff on the offensive line about simulating the snap count. So that might be something that South Carolina might try
Crimea River
might try to look at this week.
You know, Missouri, really, are they just a bunch of babies out there?
They
do they complain about everything?
They do.
Did anybody spit on the football players as they were leaving the field this time?
I did see Jim Sturk.
Did you say hey to him?
I did not.
Yeah. You say, hey, Daddy.
How
are you?
I mean, mugged. I do not like him. I've told you I don't like him.
To Clark in Greenwood, then we're going to hear from Will Muschamp on this Talking Tuesday. Clark, welcome to Sports Talk.
Phil and Will.
Yes, sir.
Hey, listen here. I got a little scenario. Listen here. Say A&M goes on and finishes out the season as a ranked team that Clemson beat. Of course, I'm a Clemson fan. Clemson comes and beats North Carolina State, which is ranked in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
And then goes on, just say Miami. They play Miami in the ACC championship, and they beat Miami. That's 3 ranked teams they beat. And then they beat South Carolina. That's 2 SEC teams they beat. And with Clemson in the playoffs the past 3 years, 2 national title and 2 national title appearances, don't that help them out to get a shot at playing, you know, in the playoffs over? Wouldn't you think that would be over Notre Dame? And I just want to get your take on that.
Yeah, thanks. I would say so. Now, it just depends on how impartial the board's going to be when they talk about Notre Dame. And, you know,
they love Notre Dame over there.
There's going to be a lot of pressure to get Notre Dame into the playoffs, both in terms of the television people, because they know what Notre Dame does to TV ratings. It just spikes it.
Oh, you're acknowledging the TV factor now for the first time.
I've always acknowledged the TV factor. Okay. I know the TV factor. Listen, that's why I said bull to the people who were pushing for the playoff, because it was supposed to be, now we're not going to have the controversies and we're not going to have the subjectivity. That was the argument for putting the playoff together. And I said, no, you're still going to have the creeps in there, you know, trying to pull their own guy through or whatever the case may be. It's no different than it ever has been, and except for the time when we relied so heavily and almost exclusively on the computers to pick it, but people got to where they didn't like that. So
I like the computers personally.
You still are going to have subjectivity with the playoff committee. And, you know, when they get together, if Notre Dame is sitting there as the number 5 team and you're looking at the other 4, of course, Alabama is a lock. Georgia, well, here's where it's going to get interesting again. Alabama, Georgia, undefeated, playing for the SEC championship game. Once again, does the loser get into the playoff again?
Not sure. Well, the one thing,
of course, the one thing that they do. Correct me last year.
Yes.
Correct me last year. Help me with memory now. Georgia, they play Auburn. They played Auburn last year, didn't they?
Yes.
Alabama didn't win the division last year.
Correct.
But still got into the playoff.
Right. Alabama was the one who got into the playoff without winning its division because they lost to Auburn in the Iron Bowl.
Correct. And then Georgia beat Auburn.
Yes.
And so the question becomes here, you got an undefeated Georgia and undefeated Alabama. The power of the SEC and the promotional arm of the SEC, also known as ESPN/Paul Feinbaum, is not going to let the loser of that game between 2 undefeated SEC teams not get in the playoffs.
The other thing, again, you don't normally –
because who owns the playoffs?
ESPN and ABC.
Correct.
Well, the other part of this, too, is that, you know, there's never been more than one undefeated team in a year since the playoff has started. We could have as many as 5 as far as that goes, but I do think when you believe where the actual playoff standings are, Clemson will have a compelling resume. It's just whether or not people are tired of Clemson, which people outside of Clemson think that that's the case.
Well, I mean, if you're tired of Clemson, shouldn't you be tired of Alabama?
Well, Alabama keeps winning.
But I mean, they've been in it every year.
They have.
Are we not Alabama fatigued?
But I don't think people can look at Alabama and say that they're bad. They're putting up
You can't look
numbers.
at Clemson and say that they're bad.
I'm not saying that.
I mean, they just scored 63 points
against Wake Forest.
They got a
high school team.
No. Wake Forest is a decent middle of the road
Like
mid-level team.
Here's the problem. Like I keep telling you,
you put Wake Forest in the Big 12, they probably finish.
You look at some of these scores that they could be possibly putting up against these teams. It might hurt them because people will just say, "Oh, well, that just means the ACC is just so weak."
Well, I mean, it is. You can't hide from the fact that we went over the strength of schedules.
Yeah,
actually, Clemson's strength of schedule is not far behind Alabama.
It's not because A&M's on that.
Yeah. So, all right, 800-956-7266 is our number. We have some open phone lines for you if you want to join in. We got some email and some Twitter to get to as well, but it is a Talking Tuesday, and it was Will Muschamp doing the talking today.
Talking about the quarterback situation at South Carolina.
Injury-wise, Jake practiced today. I thought he looked good. If he's healthy for Saturday, he'll be the starter. But I've told Jake and Mike, both of them need to be ready to go. Be ready to go play. We got two guys we can win with, and that's good to have.
Will it go up to pregame like last week when determining if Jake can go? And if he does play, do you have like a leash on him and saying like now that you have Scarnecchia behind?
I think it'll be determined before that. He looked good today. I think he's going to be fine. And at the end of the day, we'll continue to look at some mobility things tomorrow. But, again, I'm never going to put a young man in a situation where he can't protect himself, and he couldn't have Saturday. Mike performed really well, and a guy that we had a lot of confidence in going into the game, and even more so, obviously, after it. And at the end of the day, we'll make decisions in the game to win the game.
Can you take us through that decision? Why Jake over Michael?
Well, he's played a lot of really good football for us. He's got a lot of experience, and I think he's played really well. And obviously, Mike's got a smaller sample set, played well with his opportunity. But I'm making a decision what I think helps us win. And at the end of the day, that's what we're going to do. But we got two guys I have confidence that we can win with. So I feel comfortable with both guys.
Taking away health and in-game experience, when it just comes down to strict ability, what distinguishes Jake and Mike, the two of them, with their ability?
Well, I think they're very similar players. I think you look at, as far as calling the game and what we carry into a game, they're very similar as far as those things are concerned. But I don't know that I don't know that when you evaluate that, you can't take experience out of it. You can't. That's part of it.
Well, last week you expressed confidence in Michael that he could go out there and perform. And after watching him play meaningful minutes and leading the team to a victory, what does that do to your level of confidence? Do you have even more confidence, or is it just the same because that's what you expected from him?
Well, I would say more just from the standpoint of we felt like he was going to play well. And certainly under the circumstances, which no one could have predicted or thought of, he played extremely well. Going through the weather and all of the other issues that we had, coming down to a 1-minute drive to win the game. So, I mean, there's no question, but you don't ever know till you see a guy do it. You either feel really comfortable about the situation or you might be a little unsure, but I was never unsure about how Mike was going to perform.
Kind of following up on Rick's question, with the confidence coming off of this past game in Scarnecchia, if the offense struggles under Jake, regardless of the knee, will you be more likely now to run Scarnecchia out there as a way of trying to get the offense moving?
Well, we're going to make decisions to win the game.
That is Will Muschamp.
That was not a question that deserved a 3-second answer.
I was say, you and Muschamp have some beef there? It was a little.
No, it's just Muschamp, man. He gives you a direct answer. He could have elaborated on that, but that's fine. But he got right to the point. We're gonna
sirloin between the two of you?
Nah, I don't think so. I think I'm still his favorite reporter. At least that's the last thing he told me. Last time we had a chance to have dinner together, he told me how much he loved me and wished that I was around more. That I wasn't shared between two. I'm being shared between two entities.
Was that before or after your dinner with Dabo?
That was after.
Okay.
I had the dinner with Dabo earlier.
Understand.
Yeah. All right. We'll be right back.
Now back to Sports Talk, South Carolina's most listened to sports talk show for more than 30 years.
Coming up the next couple of days, we are going to be doing a lot of basketball. Tomorrow we will be at Clemson for the Brad Brownell golf outing with the media and also his first availability to talk with us to preview the season for the Tigers. And then Thursday, our first chance to talk to Frank Martin, South Carolina men's basketball coach. Have a feeling we have some questions for him.
Oh, do we?
Some of us might have more pointed questions than others. A couple more tweets from folks who are commenting about the quarterback. It's funny, we haven't gotten as much of the venom on the calls as we've had on the Twitter, just because people on the tweets have been really talking about this situation a lot more. Chris says on Twitter at SportsTalkSC, I like Jake Bentley, but Scarnecchia played the position with confidence, did not crack under pressure. The Texas A&M game may be different now that there is film out on Scarnecchia. I still don't necessarily buy that. This is from, I believe, another person talking about this, saying that his vote is for Scarnecchia. He says he necessarily thinks that Jake Bentley has a much better, Scarnecchia has a better throwing motion instead of consistently high passes, fewer picks, balls thrown out of bounds versus taking sacks, and better decision-making under pressure. With a history of folding in big games, it's easy as it gets. My vote goes to Scarnecchia. This is from a guy who calls himself American Ginseng on Twitter.
Joe sends us a text message. She says, if Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State undefeated, then SEC loser is out.
Yeah, that's fine. See, here's the thing.
What if SEC loser is Alabama?
Oof.
And they lose by a point on a field goal on the last play of the game?
I mean, I think you got to put them out. If there's four other undefeated teams, see, this is the reason it didn't happen this way last year is because it wasn't Alabama and Georgia in the SEC final. If it happens to be Alabama and Georgia in the SEC final, that turns into a knockout game in Atlanta, in my opinion. All
right, 800-956-7266. Recruiting is coming up, including an update on a cornerback. South Carolina is really, really getting after now, and I think there's a strong feeling each way. Hank in Columbia, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good.
I'm doing fine, Corn. Will, you must don't know the legend of Corn now. Corn was the guy that made Tommy Bowden cry at one of his second to last press conferences.
Mm-hmm. I am known to bring coaches to their knees. That's correct.
True story. Now, Corn said.
Oh, I think we somehow we cut off Hank.
What did you do?
Well, because you punched Hank up over here, he wasn't locked in, and Brian didn't know that, and so Brian went to pick up another call, and he hung up on Hank. Hank called back. That would be Will's mistake.
I didn't make any.
Well, you were doing Brian's job, and it didn't lock in the calls. Now the phone's going nuts.
I think it's because you pushed that button that you.
I haven't touched anything.
You pushed the one button during the break.
That had nothing to do with it. But the phone is going crazy. Let me know if you get Hank back on the line. Let him finish his comment. What he's talking about. You don't know this story?
Mm-mm.
Well, anyway, towards the end of his reign at Clemson, Tommy Bowden had his weekly press conference, and he was being pressed on the fact that basically, do you think you're going to be brought back? This was this was towards the end. This is before they lost to Wake Forest. So, Hank, you're back with us, so go ahead and tell the story.
I can't.
Well,
I think Corn. Everybody in the room. Corn, you knew the story, but everybody in the room knew the question that needed to be asked. I think Corn was the only one brave enough to ask it.
Well, yeah, they were. I don't know. I just said that towards the end of the press conference, and you had to stand up and have I don't know if we had a microphone or not, but I said, in your heart of hearts, do you think you'll be back as Clemson's football coach? And he paused, and all of a sudden his lip started quivering. He got very emotional. I think he teared up a little bit. Now, he claims his lip never quivered. That became a thing with him. My lip never quivered.
It quivered.
Yeah. That's funny.
Anyway, that was an interesting moment.
We have to do a segment, Story Time with Corn.
Which reminds me that if you are a subscriber to Tiger Illustrated, Larry Williams, you probably know this, got a great piece going this week on the 10th year anniversary of Dabo being hired as Clemson's coach and all the background, including what happened with Tommy Bowden, going back to Terry Don Phillips' initial interview with him and Bill DeAndre's initial contact with with Dabo Sweeney, and just they were just blown away by him when they hired him as a receivers coach.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of had a feeling this guy had something special to him.
Did they?
Yeah. I'd say it's paid off for him. Yeah. Go ahead, Hank.
Okay, Corn.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing with Clemson, I think Clemson goes undefeated. I think, like you said, those three teams go undefeated, then one SEC team will get in there. History says that won't happen. There'll be a couple that have to make a decision, and that will put one back in. I think what hurts Clemson with the ACC, though, is not so much what they did to Wake Forest. It was that week where Wake Forest got beat by Notre Dame and Old Dominion beat Virginia Tech, and
yes,
it was that week hurts them way more than what Clemson does to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the issue. And it seems like, with the SEC, there's kind of been a little resurgence in the East as far as teams that are. Even if they're not great teams, they're sure taking teams who are picked to be good to the wire and beating a couple of them. So that that's going to be an interesting thing. But I think if Clemson's undefeated, and I think if Clemson's undefeated, it would be the team that would get Clemson and Ohio State would get in. I just don't know. Notre Dame, I'm a Carolina fan, but I'd rather see Clemson and Notre Dame. It seems like
what if
everybody tries to push Notre Dame in all the time.
What if West Virginia and UCF are undefeated?
West Virginia plays in a conference that is
UCF is not getting in.
UCF's not getting in, number one.
Well, I'm just saying. I mean, this is where fatigue starts. But you know what? If the television ratings come back and people are tired of watching the same four teams or three of the same four teams, the committee's got to realize, you know what? Maybe we need some new blood. I'm sorry. Somebody's got to bite the bullet every so often and not get in. And let's bring in somebody else who's worthy and is also a new name and some new blood.
Here's a problem with the Big 12 is that the Big 12 is going to cannibalize itself because it felt the need to play an unnecessary championship game after they already have a basically true round robin in their conference with 10 teams.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oklahoma, if they don't beat West Virginia in the final week of the season, they'll beat them on the in the week after that in the Big 12 championship if those two are the top two teams in the Big 12. Therefore, they'll cancel each other out.
One note here, we haven't mentioned, but I see that you tweeted it. Caleb Kinlaw tweeted today that he's going to apply for a 6th year at USC so he can come back and play again next year.
Yes, he's been a big special teams contributor for South Carolina. It's something that he's hoping to get and would be a good thing for him. Of course, he's the cousin of Javon Kinlaw.
Let's hit one more phone call before the top of the hour break. Joe in Mount Pleasant, welcome into Sports Talk. How are you?
Fine. Semi-recent listener, but I got to wonder what kind of Kool-Aid y'all are drinking for the ACC and the SEC. If you're talking about Wake Forest would be some kind of power in the Big 12.
He said that.
I said that. No, I didn't say a power. I said they'd finish like 3rd, maybe 4th in the Big 12.
No, I'm sorry. No, they couldn't.
Who's better? Who's better in the Big 12? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Name them.
Okay, Oklahoma.
All right.
West Virginia.
All right.
Texas.
On a decent day.
4th automatically.
On maybe
TCU is probably better.
I don't know about that.
Oklahoma State.
I know TCU can play defense.
I'd like Oklahoma
Wake
State.
Forest is not a bad football team. Yes, they were.
I didn't say they were a bad football team.
Mm-hmm.
You were putting down the Big 12 by saying what is a medium team would be some kind of reigning power in the Big 12.
I didn't say power. I just said I thought they could finish 3rd or 4th in the Big 12. That's not being a power.
Wake Forest would not be among my choices if I was going to try to make the cross-conference comparison with the Big 12. I'm just saying that.
Well, I mentioned Wake Forest because we were talking about Clemson and Wake Forest.
NC State, for that matter. I think NC State would have a leg to stand on.
Oh, really? What if Clemson beats them by 30? Thank you.
But the last 2 games they played NC State, they've been very close.
Well,
and you could argue they should have won them 2 years ago.
They certainly should have.
I think you're going to play them close again.
Thank you for your call. Hope you'll call back.
Thanks, Joe.
You were kind of off target there. Top of the hour break, and we'll be back.
Don't insult the callers.
Best music compilation.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Hope you're enjoying yourself on this Talking Tuesday, along with Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic. Professor Tom Hayes is off this week, taking much needed R&R. He didn't take any during the summer.
I don't think he needs any time off.
He didn't take any during the summer, so he decided to take it during the football season, which made no sense.
I think he's off every day, if you ask me.
That's not true.
Just to sit across from him.
You're trying to say that he's off as in he's a tad askew.
Take it at face value.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. 800-956-7266 is the phone number. It's a Talking Tuesday. Recruiting coming up in a moment. High school football report coming your way as well. Kerry Tharp will be here to talk NASCAR.
We got some quarterbacks to talk about as well.
Some who?
Some quarterbacks.
Yes. Here from Bentley and from Trevor Lawrence and from Scarnecchia as well. The bad thing about Scarnecchia now being important in South Carolina is you got to spell that name. I've got it down though.
It autocorrects in my phone.
Can you spell it without looking at it?
SCARNE.
Wrong.
What? SCARNE.
That's right. One R, two C's.
Yes. CCHIA.
Yeah. Pelagic.
PALAS. Z as in zebra.
See the things I have to put up with.
Z as in zebra. UK.
When I write things in cornblut.
KORNBLUT.
Scrabble. You got a Scrabble game going on here. All right, let's get back to Muschamp. You want to spell Muschamp?
Not nearly enough tiles left. MUSCHAMP.
Anyway, it was a Talking Tuesday today in Columbia, getting ready for a Texas A&M team, which is improving. You saw them the season opener against Clemson. So they are definitely a team that is on the rise. Played Clemson a very close game, coming off a win over Kentucky where their defense stood out. Now, South Carolina has got to straighten out some things with some personal fouls.
Yeah, there was a very long discourse involving the discipline or lack thereof with regards to South Carolina and its self-inflicted wounds. Then this is a snippet of that from earlier today on Talking Tuesday.
I think that there is a line, obviously, that you got to draw. I think from a standpoint of, I've never want to hold back a player from his personality and who he is. But you can't hurt your football team. You can't make silly decisions and lose your composure, which to me, when you lose your composure, it affects you as a player. So it doesn't affect maybe the instant play of what just happened. It affects the next series. It affects the next 5 plays because you lose your composure and you're not making really rational decisions when you lose your composure. So certainly I do think that it affects you. Yeah.
Are you comfortable with where your team is
we've had
walking
way
that
too
line?
many self-inflicted wounds, at the end of the day. And, we were the least penalized team in the SEC last year. We were a team that kept our composure for the most part. And we didn't have self-inflicted wounds. I mean, that's something we're not going to tolerate. It's been frustrating to have. But, again, is there a correlation between winning a championship and penalties? No, there's really not. I mean, there's evidence to back that up. But you got to be a good enough team to overcome that. So, there you go.
You mentioned Sunday that you guys would be here late trying to look at the run defense. What came out of that meeting, and what have you guys come up with moving forward?
Well, I think that it's not one thing that you put your finger on and say, eureka, here we go. It's some misfits at times, whether it's from a secondary position or linebacker position, getting bounced out of a gap at times. Leveraging the ball and tackling, and you go back and look at our A&M game last year. The ball got on the second level several times. We tackled it every time it happened. So 6 to 8 to 10-yard gain didn't turn into a 28 to 30-yard gain. And that's where the huge gash runs that have happened for us this year, where we've given up tremendous amounts of yardage by not tackling on the second level. And that's been frustrating. And that's been a little of the issue at the safety position. It's been some at the corner position and some at the nickel position. So those are all things we're going to continue to work on. We work on tackling, and every single day that we're in pads, that's something you got to do well in order to have a good defense and to be the type defense you want to have. But, I think you go back and look at the Missouri game. I think they did a nice job in the run game on some things, and they caught us in some numbers at times. They got a hat on a hat. And you got to defeat a block at times. At times you're going to be at the point of attack. A tie goes to the offense. You got to defeat a block and make a tackle. And so we didn't do that enough times.
Will Muschamp from his press conference earlier today in Columbia. We'll hear more from him on this Talking Tuesday, plus the Gamecock quarterbacks and a little Clemson for you as well. Though the Tigers are off, we'll hear from Trevor Lawrence. Let's give you the recruiting report for tonight. We begin with an update on Jalen Perry of Decula, Georgia, prime USC target since before he decommitted from Georgia last week. His first post-decommitment visits was USC Saturday for the Missouri game. Beneficial for both Perry and Will Muschamp. He said he had a great conversation with Muschamp and with Travaris Robinson. He enjoyed the game, of course, despite everything with the weather. And they told him about how he would fit in there, how they like him in terms of his length and how he would play in their secondary. He thinks he'd be a great fit in their system. He's been to USC several times over the past couple of years. He's camped at USC. They know each other well. So Muschamp has also told him that, hey, look, we're losing 2 starting senior corners after this season, so there's opportunity at the cornerback position, and they'd love to have him come in and join the other young DBs. This weekend, unofficial to Michigan. He also plans to visit Florida. He's also considering Auburn. He would not rule out another visit to USC this season. Still plans to take officials before making a decision. So right now it's USC, Michigan, Florida, Auburn, his top 4. Kind of player that you got to get if you're South Carolina. Running back linebacker Quavaris Crouch of Charlotte had an official to Michigan scheduled for this coming weekend. He's postponed that until November 3rd, according to Rivals. Instead, he possibly will take an unofficial visit to USC Saturday. This, again, according to that report, which also stated Crouch might return to Clemson for the NC State game. He was at Clemson for Syracuse, and he reportedly has an official visit with the Tigers set for November 17th. Safety Dedrick Holmes of Evans, Georgia, was at USC Saturday for yet another unofficial for him. He got the chance to visit with Robinson after the game, but due to the circumstances caused by the weather, he said he was not able to get into an extended conversation. You know, he's been kind of wanting to commit to USC, but not sure yet if they are interested enough to take him. He said Robinson does want him back for another visit. He'll go to Auburn on Saturday. Athlete Deshaun Watkins of Nashville said USC is still involved in his recruiting, and he plans to visit soon. One-time USC target, defensive end Dante Walker of Ellenwood, Georgia, committed to Arkansas. Speaking of Arkansas, looks like the Arkansas fans have a strong feeling that they're going to get Kelly Bryant. A lot of conversation on their social media outlets about that possibility.
Interessante.
In baseball, USC landed 2 more commitments, man. They've been on a run the last week and a half. 2019 right-hander Thomas Farr, Northwestern Florida Junior College, a native of Tyrone, Georgia. Last year as a starter, 8-6, 4.79 ERA, 56 strikeouts in 67 2/3 innings. Also, 2021 third baseman Cooper Kinney of Chattanooga announced a commitment to USC last night. In basketball, 6'2" Fletcher A.B. of Morgantown, North Carolina, committed to the Citadel. He was the conference player of the year last season, averaging 19 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds per game. 6-foot wing Brianna Beal of Rock Island, Illinois, made her official with the USC women over the weekend. She's the number 13 player in the country by ESPN. She also has Louisville, Michigan, Duke, and Illinois on her short list. 2021 guard Russell Felton Jr. of North Augusta was among the basketballers visiting USC on Saturday. There you go with recruiting. We recommend strongly that you check it out regularly on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. And on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting for links to our information. And, of course, we will link you to any other important notes related to Clemson, South Carolina, schools around the state that others might be reporting.
Arkansas quarterback depth chart. They've got a redshirt junior starting right now in Ty Story. They got a redshirt sophomore in Cole Kelly at number 2. Connor Nolan, the freshman, at number 3.
They all pretty much stink, don't they?
They're all kind of bad.
Yeah.
They're 1-5. So they can't be good. The one thing, again, you get a guy like Kelly Bryant who comes in there that upsets the apple cart more from the quarterback situation in South Carolina when we return on Sports Talk.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Just because I'm a person who likes accuracy, I love accuracy.
Why don't you try practicing it?
I do practice it. The Arkansas situation, you mentioned the potential of Kelly Bryant going there. There are two quarterbacks. One's got six touchdowns. One's got 5 interceptions. The other's got 4 and 4. Neither of them have a completion percentage above 55%. So that's not good.
Well, the feeling among Razorback fans is that you got Chad Morris as the coach. Who did Chad Morris coach and live off of at Clemson? Deshaun Watson. Well, Kelly Bryant's not Deshaun Watson, okay? Probably runs a little better. Maybe runs as good as Deshaun Watson. Does not throw it as good. So if you're an Arkansas fan, do not think you're getting the second coming of Deshaun Watson. You'll get a pretty good football player, pretty good quarterback who in that system probably can excel and is probably better than what you got now. But don't expect him to be another Deshaun Watson if he ends up going there. Back to the phones we go, 800-956-7266. Glenn in North Charleston, welcome into Sports Talk tonight. How are you?
You know, do what Todd Ellis does, Mr. Corn, and he calls him Scar.
Yeah, you could do that. I think you could do that. Certainly. Call him Scar. Yeah.
If you don't even know him, but, hey, he's a buddy. He wins games. So call him Scar.
Call him Scar. Yep.
Yeah. And another thing, you know what Texas A&M always gives us a pain? Their defense has penetration. The offense, I mean, they need to double up, hit them in the gut, get the air out of them, because them guys are monsters. They need to get some way of doubling up or something in that front line. If you don't protect the quarterback, give Deebo Samuel or Rico or Brian the room to run down the field and get open. Their defense is rough, boy. I'm kind of concerned on this game, but with that overtime, I think they played overtime with Kentucky, but they show they're beatable. We just have to play better on that offensive line and hit them right in the gut where it counts. I mean, get the air out of their system. If you don't, they get penetration. That's it for Sparnecchia, if that's who they're going to go with.
No, they're going with Bentley, but something else to consider with Texas A&M is their punter is exceptional, and South Carolina is probably going to be faced with some long fields, I would think, if this guy gets a chance to punt them back. I was just looking at the average starting field position this season for opponents against Texas A&M, and only in the Clemson game, Clemson started at its own 27 on average. Alabama started at its own 28 on average. The rest all started inside the 25-yard line. So, you could be looking at a situation where you're going to have some long, maybe some time-consuming drives, which on the other hand, if you can make that happen, convert some third downs, and South Carolina's actually been among the nation's best converting fourth down, and keep Kellen Mond off the field as well, that could work into your favor. But I think you've got to approach this as thinking you're going to have an opportunity for some long fields and some long drives.
I do think that when it comes to Texas A&M, their defense is very similar to Missouri, although at a higher level. They do get more of a pass rush than Missouri, but they are vulnerable. If you can get great protection, you can certainly do some things in the passing game. And I know that also when you think about what A&M does well on defense, they do very well with stopping the run, because Clemson did not run it well against Texas A&M.
Well, anybody can stop Kentucky on the run tells me they can stop the run.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You stop Kentucky on the run.
That's what I'm saying. Texas A&M stops the run, but they're vulnerable in the pass.
Yep.
If you can,
you're going to give something up. I mean, if you sell out to stop something, you're going to give something up on else.
As long as you can get protection.
This could be a game where Bentley might go for 300 yards if they can keep him upright.
Who knows?
To Tiger Brian in Lancaster. Hello, TB.
How y'all doing, guys?
Hey, we're good. Y'all
getting ready for the next hurricane we got coming?
Trying.
Tropical storm by the time it gets to Columbia.
Well, it's going to be more rain.
Yeah, more rain.
Not happy about it.
And some wind, sustained winds, 30-35. 2 to 5 inches
y'all
of
be
rain.
safe, guys.
Yeah, you do the same. Yeah.
Now, you talking about Texas A&M? You got to understand they can run the ball.
Yes.
They can run the ball, and Carolina can't stop running.
That's a very, very big concern. Probably the biggest concern of
If
mine.
they run the ball, Bentley's going to be on the sideline. You know what I mean? That's, and I want to know, did they just give NC State and Clemson, they building up this game to be such undefeated? Both of them got off weeks. It just happens, I know, but
well, not necessarily. The ACC puts these schedules together, and they might have looked at the Atlantic Division and looked at the teams, and they see the senior quarterback returning at NC State. Maybe they thought with the schedule, NC State and Clemson would both be the contenders in that division. Let's give them both a week off before they play each other, then have kind of a championship game for the division, right there in October, which is the way things have turned out.
I mean, it's hard to guess the motivations of these things.
I got one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let y'all go so somebody else can talk. Really, Kelly Bryant, he went to Arkansas. I don't care who's quarterback. If you ain't got no offensive line, hey, come on now.
Mm-hmm.
But, I think he'd be a good fit there.
Which is hard to believe considering the previous coach came in with a great reputation as a running coach and a power coach. And he had to change, which goes against his grain. He had to change to more of a spread, throw it around kind of coach, which did not fit his resume at all.
And again, that's just a rumor on Brian. We have not gotten
Yeah.
official.
That's just been the talk among the Arkansas people.
The chatter.
I want to say this, talking about South Carolina, they have been outstanding on third down defensively, allowing just 25%.
Goes back to last year. That was something that was a good thing without them last year.
Now, fourth down, they're not very good, giving up 62%. But they have been great on third down, just allowing 25% of the conversions. But you have to go back and look, what are they doing on first and second down? What kind of big plays are they giving up?
The biggest issue with them is they do not turn the football over at nearly the rate they did last year.
Yeah, in terms of defense, creating turnovers.
Yes.
All right, we continue on the phones. We go to Mike in Trenton. Is that Trenton, New Jersey? Jersey boy? No. Trenton, South Carolina.
Trenton, South Carolina.
Yeah. Hey, Mike.
Hey, man. You heard y'all mention Kelly Bryant a while ago. I've been meaning to ask y'all this. When the whole thing, I'm a big Clemson guy, a big Dabo guy, but I say that to say this. Was Dabo really being that nice not to start Kelly Bryant in that fifth game, or was he trying to lock Trevor Lawrence in? No, I hadn't heard anybody talk about that.
What do you mean trying to lock? What do you mean trying to lock Trevor Lawrence in? How?
Well, so he couldn't redshirt, or maybe just decide he didn't want to play. He could have another year eligibility.
He wouldn't have had any reason to not want to play here beyond this year. I mean, beyond this year, he was supposed to be the guy.
Yeah, I think that.
What else I'm saying, and just to make sure that he didn't get kicked off because he wasn't started, because he started his whole life.
I don't really think a lot really bothers that young man.
I think Dabo, in good conscience, looked at Kelly Bryant's situation and discussed it with him, or kind of knew in his mind, okay, here we are coming up on the fourth game, and I'm going to give him the opportunity. He really kind of gave Kelly the opportunity to
make a choice.
Right. Yeah, he did not. He could have selfishly, for the team, played him and locked him in, and there would be no chance for him to transfer. But he, I think, took the high road, and I think he did the honorable thing, the humane thing to do in terms of dealing with another person in his career, and put the ball in his court and said, "Here you go, man. You can do it for yourself, or you can do it for the team." Kelly chose to do what he thinks best for him, which is to transfer. So he very kindly did not tie his hands.
It had been something that had been bubbling to the surface when it comes to Trevor's ability, shining more than Kelly. And like you said, I think at the end of the day, he basically put the ball in Kelly's court, and Kelly obviously decided to take his ball and go home, and more power to him for that.
We'll be back. We've got Kerry Tharp coming up and more from Muschamp.
back as we continue here on a Talking Tuesday, hearing from the head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks, Will Muschamp. Again, we did not get a chance to hear from Dabo Sweeney. They did their service project today at Clemson. They were getting ready to kind of finish off their open week activities. They've got 2 more practices Wednesday and Thursday before they take their bye week Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they make things happen with that. So from that perspective, we will at least look more for Clemson next week, and we'll get you some more from Muschamp here as we go throughout the second hour of our program.
All right. We're going to hear more from Muschamp, and perhaps Kerry will be joining us here shortly. In the interim, this is a good program filler as we welcome in the de facto mayor of the city of Charleston, the bad boy by the bay, the ninja of the night, the pontiff of the port city, and the queen of the cowboy crybabies. And boy, do they have a lot to cry about. And newly named official weatherman for the city of Charleston because he's so busy identifying these storms forming off the Atlantic coast. It's not Jim Rome. He's really busy with all his shows. This is Jay Rome, who joins us here on his own show, pumping up the ratings of Sports Talk. Yeah.
And he's overrated, by the way. Hey, Phil, I just want to invite you and the crew. They're opening up 3 new bars here on the corner of Spring and King Street in the next few weeks. And you're all invited just as long as you pay.
Yeah. Now, which is your favorite one? So, people ask me all the time, Jerome, because you are a statewide star. They said, have you ever met Jerome? And I'm like, well, it's hard to get into his prison and get to visit with him. It's just it's difficult. And then and his mom won't let us visit him, so it's just difficult. I don't. If you're there, we'll be happy to meet you.
Hey, I'm glad that you're in such an upbeat spirit last night, especially after what you got last night. 16-1.
I got one upside the head.
Not good.
Have you ever watched a baseball game and you knew from the first pitch? Remember, I said it to you. From the first pitch, I knew the Yankees were in trouble.
You were
because
screwed.
The first pitch went to the wall, and then I looked up after batter number 2, and I saw Brett Gardner's back running to the wall. I'm thinking to myself, this is not how this is supposed to be starting, and that was just an indication of what was to come.
It was a bad situation.
Hey, who coaches that Cowboy team? Is it the guy with the tight face, or who's running things there now?
Hey, he had to take some of that stuff CC Sabathia's been taking.
You're not supposed to lose to Houston Texans.
Did he say? And am I correct about this? Did he say that they've never had a breakaway wide receiver or didn't he have a guy named Bryant who's pretty good?
Look,
a tight end
I got a
Witten
serious
was
question
pretty
to
good.
ask you. I have a serious question to ask you.
Yes.
Who are these people that Kevin Garnett is suing for $77 million? I saw a story on one of those morning talk shows a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Garnett is suing someone for $77 million.
He's an accountant.
I saw that. He's an accountant.
Yes, he's an accountant and his firm alleging they helped a wealth manager steal money from him.
A lot of that goes on with these pro athletes. They end up losing their money.
It's all about who you have in your circle.
You got to be careful, Jerome. Who handles your money?
I don't have any money, so I'm not rich like you.
Oh, you want me to get my my hedge fund manager to give you a call?
I bet you got more money than Shaq, don't you? You ain't fooling me.
I got more than Shaq Wilson. No, I shouldn't say that. Shaq Wilson probably making a lot of money.
O'Neal.
No, I think Shaq's got me covered.
Talking to you.
All right, Jerome. It's one of the few times we haven't had to cut Jerome off.
I've still yet to see your great, awesome Garden City estate either.
Well, it's still standing. That's all I got to tell you. I'm hoping it survives Hurricane number 2.
Did you fix the roof in time for this one?
Well, yeah, we found the roofer. We found the guy that put the roof on. He's supposed to be going down and fixing it from this last time. Hopefully he gets it done in time for the next hurricane. Did not hear from Kerry tonight, so we will soldier on this Tuesday night with a little more Will Muschamp.
Muschamp talking about his thoughts on the Aggies of Texas A&M and a head coach he knows very well.
A lot of respect for Jimbo. He's a great friend, and we work together back at Auburn in the 90s, and then obviously together at LSU with a really good football coach, and he's got a good football team. Offensively, Kellen Mond is playing at an extremely high level, completing over 60% of his passes, and a guy that can hurt you with his legs as well. But he's playing really good football for them and getting them in and out of the right runs versus the right looks and the things he's doing. They got a really good stable of backs, and Williams is a special guy as far as running through contact. He creates a lot on his own. Corbin's a young back that's really coming on for him. Sternberger, the tight end's been a huge addition for him, and a guy they certainly have targeted a lot, as Jimbo always has in the tight end in his offense. A big physical group of receivers, offensive line, mostly all back from last year of guys we faced. And defensively, Mike Elko does a fantastic job. Mike was at Wake for a while there and always liked watching his teams play and his defenses play. But they're very disruptive up front, the front four at Durham and Kiki and Mack and Matabuke are very disruptive guys. They create a lot of issues for you. They've done an outstanding job in the run game. Two very active linebackers in Dodson and Alaka are both guys that are very active that we played against last year. And Donovan Wilson is a safety. He's a very physical presence on the field and does a really nice job for them. But they've got a really good team speed, which obviously helps their special teams. Their punters averaging about 60 yards a kick, I believe. So we've got to manage for that in the game, but they've got good specialists as well and good team speed. Injury-wise, Jake practiced today. I thought he looked good. If he's healthy for Saturday, he'll be the starter. But I've told Jake and Mike both of them need to be ready to go.
That is a little bit more from Will Muschamp here
Nice
on Sports
job.
Talk. I tried to wave it down.
We do have Kerry Tharp with us now as we welcome in the president of Darlington Raceway for a quickie. This got to be a quick two-tire stop. Can't give you a four-tire stop this time, which, it's funny because that race up at Dover, a lot of strategy played out over the last couple of stops, and it came down to who stayed out, who took two, who took four.
That's exactly right. And, Chase Elliott stayed out there, and I thought his crew chief, Alan Gustafson, made a gutsy call to stay out on old tires, and they had that last restart. He held off Denny Hamlin, who's a very, aggressive and veteran and hungry driver. I got to hand it to old Chase. I thought he did a super job by holding on there and getting that win, and he's advancing now to the next round.
Pretty exciting to have an Elliott, moving on, a big name, and a guy that can certainly, build up a lot of fan following, and maybe he's the guy moving forward who's going to be that next young shining star.
Well, I think so, Phil. I tell you, when he had knocked on the door so many times over the past couple of years, I think he had like 8 second-place finishes. And for him to win at Watkins Glen in August and then come back and win this big playoff race at Dover, young people like that get confidence and they get momentum. And all of a sudden, they look around and they say, you know what, I can win this thing. And so I'd put him right in there right now as a very, very legitimate contender heading down the stretch.
Spin it forward to Talladega. Who you like?
Huh.
Well, I tell you, I like Joey Logano, the 22 car. He's been very, very good there. He needs a win. I like Joey Logano to win at Talladega.
Yeah, but there's going to be the big one, and then the bigger one, and then the biggest one, and it's going to be really who stay. What do you think the strategy is going to be with the playoff guys? Do you think they're going to try and run hard early and get away, or lay back and try and miss the stuff?
Well, it depends. Some of the playoff guys are in pretty good shape. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, even Brad Keselowski to a certain extent, and Truex. But then some of the guys back there towards the bottom, Kurt Busch and Clint Boyer, they're kind of a little bit in no man's land. So I think it's going to be, some aggressiveness there towards the end. You're going to be biding your time throughout most of the race. But I tell you what, when that lap 25 or lap 30 mark gets, I think it's going to be, all hands on deck, and everybody's going to be going pretty hard.
That's going to be another great race at Talladega, no question about it. And anything can happen, and it could be one of the non-contenders who comes away with that victory.
That's exactly right. We've seen it before. Anything can happen on those last few laps, having to be in the right place at the right time.
Hey, we thank you. Sorry for the shorty. Again, it was a two-tire stop this time, and we got you in a full tank of Sunoco fuel and got you on your way.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
All right, man.
You know what they say, Corn? Rubbin's racing.
It is indeed.
Rubbin is racing.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Our voice guy Lance is not lying. I literally do not sleep because I have diagnosed insomnia, and you don't sleep because you stay up until 3 o'clock in the morning writing recruiting stories.
Working.
That's what happens. It's now time for the high
Some
school.
of us have to work to make us great.
Now go into the high school sports report on Sports Talk, which is brought to you by the fine folks at Farm Bureau Insurance. More of your phone calls here to come. 800-956-7266. With Fave Rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you get all your favorite things like competitive rates, local agents, and great claim service for all your auto, home, life insurance needs. Get a no-obligation quote today at faverates.com.
All right, let's give you the rankings for this week from the High School Sports Report. In 5A, top 10, Dutch Fork, Fort Dorchester, Gaffney, Burns, T.L. Hanna. Nobody's going to argue with that.
Nope.
Sumter, Dorman, Berkeley, Somerville, Carolina Forest.
Losers.
4A, top 10, Hartsville, Greer, Myrtle Beach, Daniel, Lancaster, Belton Honeypath, South Point, Marlboro County, Wilson, North Myrtle Beach.
Interesting.
3A, Dillon, Chester, Chapman, Camden, and Wade Hampton of Hampton. Then May River, Strom Thurmond, Ainer, Manning, and Gilbert. In 2A, Abbeville, Barnwell's undefeated, Bamberg Earhart, Carvers Bay, 96, Andrews, Woodland, Mullins, Landrum, and Southside Christian.
Will Pelagic's number 5, 96 Wildcats, I thank you.
And in 1A, it's Lamar, Lakeview, Wagner Sally, Great Falls, Branchville, Dixie, Greensea Floyds, Timmonsville, St. John's, and Blackville Hilda. High school football report tonight here on Sports Talk.
Still waiting for my swag from 96, by the way.
Yeah, you hold your breath on that.
I'm holding it.
To Angry Lawyer in Wilder. Who do you want to sue, sir?
Sue, sir?
I tell you, I don't want to sue anybody because, well, my father was a lawyer. I'm not. So I saw how they operate.
Gotcha. Shyster lawyer?
Actually, my father was a lawyer.
Yeah, was he a shyster lawyer?
No, absolutely not. What's ironic about that, he was a defense attorney in Charleston, and I'm not going to say who, but one of the attorneys who worked for him is now prominently on, the new or on the airwaves, television airwaves all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Brett Kavanaugh, is
I'm sure
it?
he's a good man. What's that?
It's not Mr. Kavanaugh, is it?
Yeah. Well, I'll bring that up quickly. No, but I can tell you my father is deceased, but he would not approve.
Okay.
That actually, before he died, my father talked about actually didn't use to allow advertise to lawyers. My father was adamantly against it.
Interesting.
But if I make a quickly, I'll talk about the quarterback situation quickly. But before that, if you're politics, you're a national or regional, local political talk show host or a statewide talk show host. Listen. I'm sure there's times it's dry, it's hard, but yeah, if you're one of those talk show hosts, national politics or sports statewide, the job's easy right now. So
Plenty to talk about. Plenty to talk about. So what you got for us?
Okay.
Before I declare a mistrial.
Quickly about the quarterback situation. The quarterback situation with Trevor Lawrence and Kelly Bryant in the Gamecock situation, just the juxtapositioning of the two situations. Well, Kelly Bryant, I can't get another year, so I'm going somewhere else. Where in Skarnikia, listen, I haven't played. Well, I played maybe one play, and now 5 years. I hung with it, and he had a game like that, and they won that game. I think just the juxtaposition of those two events is just quite. I don't know. It's just kind of it's the big picture of a lot of things. So, like you said, you felt that Bryant should have stuck with the team. I'm not going to say he should or shouldn't have, but Skarnikia did. In some way, this is one of those, Rudy stories or something like that.
Well, what you got here, and thank you for your call. When somebody makes an opinion on whether he should stay or not, you draw on your opinion from your own experiences in your own life. And listen, I'm an old school kind of guy when it comes to sports. Okay. I don't like a lot of the millennial, new age sports, things that are happening in the sports world. I don't like them. Okay. Because I believe sports is there for a lot of different reasons than people today who are sports fans view sports. So I still believe that it's first, and you sacrifice for the team in case something happened to Lawrence. In Scarnecchia's case, a little different. I mean, he's never been a player. He's never been a starter. He's not a guy that on the major college level who could just up and find another home in all likelihood, based on what we've seen at this point. But he got his chance to show the SEC at least what he could do, and I'm sure he impressed a lot of people around the SEC seeing him for the first time.
It's possible to say that Dabo Swinney made the right decision. It's possible to say that Kelly Bryant made the right decision for himself because he wants to do something for his
take
future.
a stance.
But I also think it's possible, as a Clemson fan, for you to be upset that it didn't end at Clemson.
Well, what is your opinion?
My opinion is I don't like it. But I'm saying it's possible to have all three opinions at once.
Well, I mean, opinions are up to each individual.
These are mutually.
I'm not saying any
No,
one opinion. The only opinion that matters in this case was Kelly Bryant's, and his opinion was, I want to go someplace where potentially I can start for an entire season.
The only thing I didn't like that he said was I didn't like that he said that he didn't get a fair shake. That was the part I didn't like.
Yeah, that was out of bounds, like some of his passes. Ooh. Now, listen, he has.
Wow. You were the guy who wanted him starting.
No. You're right. You're right. But let me go back for a second. I saw something, I heard something, and this is where your national talking heads, they're sort of
out of touch.
Well, when it comes to the local teams, yes. I mean, they've got the big picture nationally, the overview, but this person made the comment, and I'm kind of piecing it together in my head, talking about Kelly Bryant, and was talking about him not being a very good passer. And maybe that was, he was making the point out that he wasn't a very good passer and never would be, which is quite the opposite in that he went from being not a very good passer to quite a competent passer. And I'm serious. He went from a guy that even Chuck Reedy said on this show, based on what he had seen, he would never be a good enough passer to win in the ACC. He proved everybody wrong last year. And you know what? His numbers this year were not horrible. He just got surpassed by a superior overall quarterback who's young, who's got a big arm, and can do a lot of things with the Clemson offense that he's not capable of doing. Now, the running part of it, they're going to miss perhaps at some point in time. All right, quickly, we finish up by going to Austin and Anderson up in the upstate. Austin, welcome in.
Hey, just kind of talking about the playoff and then quarterback situation at Carolina. I agree. I think Bentley's probably the best option for y'all and for South Carolina. He's had not the best year, but maybe seeing Scarnecchia do well last week, hopefully that puts him in check. But I do think you start him with a much shorter leash, and I know Muschamp's not going to say that, but he definitely has very much less room for error as he has had the past year and a half. And then on the playoff, if Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Clemson all go unbeaten, and then Georgia or Alabama lose to each other in a close game, I could see either Notre Dame or Clemson getting left out. And it depends on if Clemson, if we can play up to our potential and blow people out. One of y'all said something earlier about how does it hurt your resume if you blow people out? I think maybe I heard that wrong, but that's, I think, kind of a crazy comment. If you don't blow the teams out that you're supposed to play.
Oh, well, we're up against the clock. Hey, listen, thanks for calling. We really appreciate it. Give us a holler back tomorrow night. You can complete your thoughts.
My opinion is they're just making the ACC look worse than it really is, which doesn't need any help with.
I agree. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Brian. Go Yankees. Have a great night, everybody. Go Yankees. We'll see you tomorrow.